My name is Lisa, and I chose to do my first video presentation on an article that I found on Intervention Central called Breaking the Attention-Seeking Habit, The Power of Random Positive Teacher Attention. This article caught my eye because it's a strategy that I was taught to use when providing applied behavior analysis on early intervention cases, but it was never something that was formally discussed or trained. It was really just learned by observing my supervisors and working with my co-teachers. I believe that the power of positive teacher attention can be key to decreasing attention-seeking behavior, especially when it involves a student acting negatively to gain teacher attention. I've personally observed the success of this strategy, which is why I wanted to share it with the rest of you. So we know that students don't all misbehave just for the fun of it, and those of us that are already in the field of special education know that there's always an antecedent to a behavior, and it's the consequences that we choose to give for that behavior that creates the foundation for continued behavior or the reduction of the behavior. When a student starts to misbehave and try to attract teacher attention, whether it be in a positive or a negative way, they act that way because they've gotten attention that way in a previous situation. So in the article, they discuss reprimand traps, and a reprimand trap is when a student misbehaves and gets a rise from the teacher, and the student is reprimanded for their behavior. So the student continues to act out with those challenging behaviors to gain the teacher attention because the teacher naturally reacts negatively to the challenging behavior that the child is using, and that's reinforcing for them. They discussed how teachers can break the cycle of the reprimand trap by using positive teacher attention with these students. Basically, instead of giving the student the attention that they want by reprimanding them, the teacher would ignore the challenging behavior and randomly give the student positive attention when they aren't acting out with a challenging behavior. The key is to make sure that the positive attention is unconnected with the misbehaviors. They discuss 5 steps for implementing the intervention strategy. So the first step, you have to select how the teacher will show positive attention to the student. The teacher gets to choose when the student will receive the random positive attention and how they'll receive it as well. But remember, the positive attention doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It could be something as simple as positive praise, telling Johnny that he did a good job taking notes or sitting still during class, giving him a pat on the back or a smile of encouragement. Anything as simple as that could be positive teacher attention. The second step, you have to decide how frequent the teacher will give the random positive attention, and they recommend that you start out at a high frequency and then fade your way to less frequent occurrences. In order to find out how often you should be positively attending to a student, you should definitely observe them and see how often they're seeking teacher attention in a negative way. And then by doing that, you can counteract the behavior and give them positive attention before they seek negative attention. The third step, you have to choose the times and setting in which you use random positive attention. By your observations in step 2, you can determine when the student is engaging in attention-seeking behaviors, whether it's right after lunch or only during math, or sometimes it'll be all day long. That way you could determine when to use the intervention. The fourth step is starting the random attention intervention. There are 2 rules that they give us using this intervention strategy. The first rule is that if the student tries to get your attention inappropriately, you have to either ignore the behavior or redirect them in a neutral way without giving them the negative attention that they're seeking. The second rule, when the student is ready for more positive attention, let's say it's been 5 minutes, okay, time to tell Johnny that he's doing a great job, sitting still or taking his notes. Observe him first, because you could turn around and Johnny will be throwing paper at the chalkboard, and you shouldn't be encouraging any of that behavior. So you would have to neutrally redirect him back to task and not give him the positive praise that you were about to give before you saw the challenging behaviors occurring. The fifth step is fade the successful intervention over time. So when you begin to realize that the random positive attention is reducing or eliminating the negative attention-seeking behavior, then you could begin to gradually fade the intervention strategy. The great thing about fading gradually is that if you notice that once you start fading and the behaviors begin to increase again or come back, you can stop the fading and continue the intervention as it was, and then try to fade again once you notice the intervention becoming successful again. If you notice that you begin this intervention and the student's behavior isn't improving, there are a few things to consider. One, you can try increasing the rate and frequency of the positive attention to get them to act more appropriate. Or sometimes without even realizing, you can also make the common mistake of continuing to give negative attention during the positive attention intervention. So you may have to pay extra close attention to detail during this intervention to be sure that all behaviors are being ignored during when the intervention is put into place and you're only giving positive attention. Also, sometimes students don't find teacher attention very rewarding. So they may be acting out to seek peer attention or for other reasons. So this intervention will only work if the student is seeking teacher attention in a negative manner. If they're acting out with challenging behaviors for another reason, no amount of positive teacher attention is going to decrease the other attention-seeking behaviors. I found this strategy to work wonderfully, although I've only used it with students ranging up to 1.5 to 5 years of age. I would definitely use this strategy in a classroom setting, and it can even be used in the home by parents and siblings of students with challenging behaviors. This intervention doesn't just have to be used with children with disabilities, it can also be for any child that acts out in a challenging way for another person's attention. And that's a great thing about this intervention strategy is that you don't need any specific training to implement this strategy. So as long as you know the student and their traits, you can implement this intervention. I hope this helps.